us how you define that professionally and what you see with that.
So, start off with domestic violence and parental alienation. There are warm, fuzzy folks that have divorces and work together.
We're not talking warm, fuzzy.
Yeah.
There are families that do quite well. They work together as families, even post-separation. Trey and I are both parents who are divorced and raised our children between two homes, and we have successful cooperative parenting relationships. But the more risky, concerning areas are those cases where there is domestic violence or alienation going on. And alienation is basically when one parent is turning the child against the other parent. It is important to understand that there's different levels of parental alienation. There's what we call naive alienation. And naive alienation is generally occurring when somebody's alienating, but they don't know that it's alienation. And those families are pretty easy to work with. Having a good attorney identifying, we call that alienation, or coming to a co-parenting education class where they learn it's alienation, those folks stop those behaviors. Then there's a more aggressive form where they tend to do it when they're angry, and then they'll backtrack and apologize. The alienation cases we're the most concerned with are those where basically every cell of the person's body is dedicated to destroying the child's relationship with the other parent, and those are tough cases to work with. We have lots of tools available for them, like reunification therapy. Sometimes you have two things going on. One is one parent turning the child against the other parent, but the other parent is estranging the child. And estrangement would be a child doesn't want to spend time with a parent that's too focused on relationships as opposed to parenting time, or they may have a very authoritarian type of parenting style where they're very aggressive and dominating, and the child is growing up in a home that's more laissez-faire, and that child just has a hard time spending time in that environment where they're being physically disciplined and where there's a lot of regulations within the household. So those things tend to go hand in hand. I know that's a very broad response.
Interesting. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break and we'll get more with that. Co-parenting is our topic tonight. We'll continue here on Relationship Roundtable right after this brief timeout. For over 3 decades, Steve Bruneman has been a Texas trial lawyer, battling for his clients' rights, specializing in comprehensive family law services. To this day, he remains one of the most experienced board-certified family law attorneys in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. His unique combination of experience, knowledge, trial skills, and commitment are what continue to set him apart from his peers. He's been named a Texas Super Lawyer 6 consecutive years, and now adds published author to his resume, having just written The Marriage Gamble, a step-by-step guide that teaches the skills needed to become a great spouse. Because as Steve says, great spouses don't divorce. Achieving the results his clients desire and deserve. That's Steve Bruneman. Passionate about his work, compassionate with his clients. Visit his website, brunemanlaw.com. That's BRUNEMANlaw.com. Serving Dallas, Collin, Denton, Rockwall, Ellis, and Kaufman counties. Having a tough time all of a sudden? Hit a bump in the road, maybe even in trouble with the law? Then listen up. Calvin D. Johnson, attorney at law, can help you out. He's knowledgeable, passionate, and a proven defense attorney with over 15 years' experience in the criminal courts in the state of Texas. He has handled a multitude of criminal defense matters, from felonies to misdemeanors, whether DWIs, theft, drug possession, or assault cases. Calvin D. Johnson can help you ease the pain while solving and resolving the issues you're dealing with. In addition, he's a proven professional when it comes to educational law. He has handled school district board meetings, grievances, and other matters before the Texas Education Agency, having assisted hundreds of teachers with their certification-related matters. So whether educational courts or matters within the criminal courts, count on Calvin D. Johnson, attorney at law. Visit his website today, attorneycalvindjohnson@gmail.com. Been in the market for a good attorney lately? If so, make certain that you find someone that is knowledgeable, experienced, and trustworthy, and certainly board certified. Board certification is a mark of excellence and signifies that the certified attorney has met rigorous objective standards. And here in the great state of Texas, only 10% of practicing attorneys have achieved such distinction. One such attorney, Trey Harris. And if you happen to live in Tarrant, Johnson, or Parker counties, then he should be your attorney of choice. The Harris Law Firm is a boutique firm located in Fort Worth, specializing in all aspects of family law, including adoptions, divorces, child support issues, protective orders, and cases involving child protective services. Sound like someone you need to talk to? Then give them a call today, 817-294-2727. 1237. Again, that's 817-294-1237, and schedule your consultation today.
Welcome back to the Scott Murray Show as the Relationship Roundtable continues with Steve, Calvin, Trey, and Scott.
And also with us tonight is co-parenting counselor and social worker Brad Craig is in the room, and we're delighted to welcome him. Thanks for being here, Brad. Stay real close to that microphone like you have just met your newest best friend in the whole world.
All right, this is my new intimate mic.
Well, that's too much information, but that's okay. Hey, we were talking about what goes on in co-parenting, and what you started out with some great thoughts here before we had to take a break. But we're all about the do's and don'ts and solutions. If you find yourself in this situation, what do you do? How do you avoid it, first of all? But then what do you do if you're in that situation? What are the things that you don't do, and what are the things that you want to do?
That you want to do is remember you're still a family. Whether you're a one-night stand or a 30-year marriage, whether you're grandparents that are actively involved in raising the children, you're still a family. And watch your language sometimes. When you talk about, well, I'm remarried, have a new family now. You don't really have a new family from the child's perspective. You've added a new player to the child's family, a step-parent. So I think the to-dos are often asking yourself, how would we have handled this if we were still living together? If I need a babysitter for the child, who's the first person I would have called? Well, it probably would have been my co-parent. And if you can have a good enough relationship to facilitate that, you just continue working together as a family. There's no reason maternal grandmother can't spend time with the children during dad's parenting time. The don'ts are things that seem pretty obvious, but mistakes that parents often make. It's the secret agent child, where they start probing the child about what happens at the other parent's house. Or it's the messenger child. Tell your mom you need to go to church more often, or tell your dad I'm going to be running a little bit late. Saying negative things about the other parent in the hearing range of the children. We know that children are incredibly defensive of protecting their parents. Children in a daycare, one 3-year-old walks up to another 3-year-old and says, your daddy is a jerk. Well, there's going to be toddler fisticuffs or a verbal exchange going on. Parents sometimes, though, end up saying bad things about the other parent in the hearing range of the child, or sometimes directly to the child. So I think those are some of the common ones: the secret agent child, messenger child, saying negative things. Sometimes they make the mistake of adultifying the child and having them involved in the litigation, talking about going to court. With the family code right now, there's an opportunity sometimes for children to appear before a judge to make a recommendation of where they would like to spend most of their time. And that creates some conflict in some of the cases we're working with too, because the children often feel this burden. I'm trying to remember the name of the individual from the movie Catch Me If You Can, but his experience was he went to court and the judge asked him who he wanted to live with. And it put so much pressure on him that he ran out of that courtroom and started his career as a career criminal. And he talks about that once that decision was made, he ended his relationship basically with his father, had a minimal relationship with his mom, just felt like his world was stripped out from under him, being asked to pick between the two most important people in his life.
Interesting.
The judges have to be trained on how to speak to kids, and I think most of them do, and they try to kind of get around it from the backside without actually asking them. But that's amazing how traumatic that was on that guy. So that's horrible. Yeah.
Interesting. It really is. You just kind of sit here and go, wow. Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's horrible when they bring. I had a case last week where the father brought one of the kids is 18, but he's got another year in high school, and he brought the kid to court. And it's like, you don't bring kids. I don't care if they're adults.
Yeah, the poor kid. What did he do? What did he do?
Yeah, well, they finally sent him home, and the judge just laid into him and said, "You don't bring
laid
kids."
into the father is what you're talking about. Yeah. As well he should.
Yeah, because obviously he'd been talking to this kid, and there was a younger child, and his idea was, well, if I want to stay with Dad, then the judge won't split up the kids. So, but it's just obviously the dad was speaking to the kid, both of them, and I know he was. He had him signing papers, not just affidavits, but other papers. Like, it's just horrible. You see it all the time, I guess.
I was going to say, do you see that often or not?
Well, what we see in our co-parenting class, we talk about in 2009 and prior to that, our family code had a provision where children can sign a document at age 12 picking which parent they wanted to be with. It was age 12. I think it started at age 14, went to 12, went to 10, then back up to age 12.
Bounced back and forth for about 10 years.
And, luckily in 2009, we removed that from the family code, but now there's the opportunity still for a child to consult with a judge. And the problem that I find is, with so much of family law, even though it's designed to be in the best interest of the child, it really rarely is. When parents end up in court, they end up battling over their time. Well, I want more time with the child. I want more time. You rarely hear parents saying, well, we want to be ordered to move in and out of the house and the child gets to stay in one home. Or you don't hear them argue over, we want to live in such a close proximity our child can walk across the street and spend time with both of us. And I think that comes true when it comes to this choice between the two homes, too. When I interviewed children back when I did custody evaluations, one of the questions I would ask is, if a genie popped out of a bottle and you had 3 wishes in the whole world, what would your number 1 wish be? And their number 1 wish was, I want my mom and dad back together. So when we have these children in the situation where they're being asked, which do you want to live with, we're not really asking the question of, what is it that you really want? Judge Beebe in Tarrant County, before she retired, was one of those judges who would interview the child, and the child would say, well, I want to be with both my parents. I want them to live together. And she would go back out there and say, you told me you do what they wanted. They want you to stay together. Unless you're going to make that happen, quit putting them in the middle.
How do you get the emotion out of a dad like Steve was talking about just a moment ago, or a mom that's just off the wall, or is that possible? Is there any common sense that as we sit here and hear these stories, I'm just kind of saying to myself, you got to be kidding me. How can a parent that brought a child into this world be such a, and I can't use the word that I would call them, I don't understand that. I really don't.
I do think for most of the families, it's just a matter of education. Some of these parents, some of these adults weren't raised in very healthy environments themselves. And so they're thrown into a world. We're not often very well trained to be parents, more or less trained to be parents raising children between 2 homes. It's a learning curve. I am a divorced parent. And for me, it took us a little while to reestablish our relationship and still be a family. And I'm fortunate. I have a fantastic co-parent. I love her family that are still a big part of my family. But there's a lot of learning involved in getting there. And so I think with a lot of the families I work with, just educating them, helping them understand this is a problem, how to deal with the emotions like you mentioned. When we look at grief that people experience, the most difficult grief in general that you can experience is death of a loved one. What's second? Divorce or separation. And it takes us a while to transition from that shock and denial of, I can't believe my spouse wants to end this marriage, to, okay, the world is a happy, warm, fuzzy place. It takes about 2 years to get there. When people are entrenched in protracted litigation, it's really hard to focus on, we've got to be nice to each other when we've got somebody evaluating us, and where every decision I make can be held against me in a courtroom full of strangers. If dad wants to see the child on Tuesday, I kind of want him to spend time with the child on Tuesday, but I don't want it to come up in court that, well, now he wants every Tuesday. So they're stuck in dealing with this litigation mindset along with still being a family mindset, and it's really a difficult place to be for these families. What we hope is the dust will settle a couple years later. I think the most we can do as attorneys and mental health professionals with these families is to educate them and to try and stabilize them and get them focused on that would be good for you maybe, but it wouldn't be good for your child.
Calvin, Trey? Any thoughts?
I was going to ask this question. What happens when you get one parent, and I always say they have vengeance issues like Dexter. They want to get back at people. And what happens when you have one parent, whether that be the mom or the dad, that's flat out has vengeance issues? I've seen situations where they will go to any and all lengths to get back at the other parent. And it's not even about the child anymore. They want to put that person in danger, and they don't think about the child anymore. What do you do when you have situations like that?
And probably use the child to help do that, right?
Oh, yeah. They have no limits to what they will do.
So one of the tools that we now have available for families in Texas is something called parenting coordination and parenting facilitation. Parenting coordination is confidential. Parenting facilitation allows the attorney or mental health professional who's working in that role with the family to report back to the court. And we found that pretty effective with the vindictive parent. A judge only gets to hear so much information about what's going on in a case, generally maybe 6 hours at the most, and that's through filtering through a lot of information. So with parenting facilitation, the parenting facilitator is able to report back to the court to let them know who's sabotaging the process. I love parenting facilitation in the sense that I love the opportunity to be able to work with the attorneys and with the judge in helping them resolve their conflict. With tools like parenting coordination, I'm all by myself, and I can't report back to the court if somebody's sabotaging the process. I can say it's working or it's not working. With parenting facilitation, I can report back to the court. And what we find is sometimes a handshake between the mental health community and the court is very effective. Jail therapy works.
Yes, it does.
I'm a huge advocate of jail therapy. When I have a parent who says, well, I can't make my child go if they don't want to, and the other parent is not abusive, it's amazing what a day in jail, or even the threat of a day in jail will do to get a parent to suddenly go, oh, you have to go with your mom now. I'm able to do that.
I did that this week, and it was very effective.
Yep. Just the threat of it sometimes. The financial consequences sometimes are beneficial.
Sitting in Tarrant County or Dallas County jail is kind of makes people want to do right.
Yeah, meeting your new cellmate often helps you facilitate following a court order.
Hey, Bob, what are you in here for?
Right.
And eating the mystery meat, and it's not bologna.
Yeah.
Mystery meat.
Yeah, now that's way too much information
I
right there.
wouldn't want to be in Loose Dairy for $1 million.
Leave me on the side of the road.
Oh, God. 6:30 is where we stand right now. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking about co-parenting. Brad Craig is our special guest. He's a social worker and co-parenting counselor, and we're back with more here on 570 KLIF. Hi, Scott Murray here with an important question for you. Are your retirement accounts at risk of being devastated by another stock market correction? If you said yes, or for that matter aren't totally sure, then you should contact my friend Kathy DeWitt Dunn. She'll show you how to take advantage of growth in the market without the risk, using strategies you just simply won't find at traditional brokerage houses. Chances are you've seen Kathy as a featured financial expert on television news programs here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So why not let Kathy personally help you take control of your retirement money, eliminate market risk, and gain long-term financial security? Take your first step toward a better retirement. Schedule your free consultation by simply calling Kathy at 972-473-4700. Again, that's 972-473-4700. Or visit Kathy online at annuitywatchusa.com. For over 3 decades, Steve Bruneman has been a Texas trial lawyer, battling for his clients' rights, specializing in comprehensive family law services. To this day, he remains one of the most experienced board-certified family law attorneys in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. His unique combination of experience, knowledge, trial skills, and commitment are what continue to set him apart from his peers. He's been named a Texas Super Lawyer 6 consecutive years, and now adds published author to his resume, having just written The Marriage Gamble, a step-by-step guide that teaches the skills needed to become a great spouse. Because as Steve says, great spouses don't divorce. Achieving the results his clients desire and deserve. That's Steve Bruneman. Passionate about his work, compassionate with his clients. Visit his website, BrunemanLaw.com. That's BRUNEMAN Law.com. Serving Dallas, Collin, Denton, Rockwall, Ellis, and Kaufman counties. Having a tough time all of a sudden? Hit a bump in the road, maybe even in trouble with the law? Then listen up. Calvin D. Johnson, attorney at law, can help you out. He's knowledgeable, passionate, and a proven defense attorney with over 15 years' experience in the criminal courts in the state of Texas. He has handled a multitude of criminal defense matters, from felonies to misdemeanors, whether DWIs, theft, drug possession, or assault cases. Calvin D. Johnson can help you ease the pain while solving and resolving the issues you're dealing with. In addition, he's a proven professional when it comes to educational law. He has handled school district board meetings, grievances, and other matters before the Texas Education Agency, having assisted hundreds of teachers with their certification-related matters. So whether educational courts or matters within the criminal courts, count on Calvin D. Johnson, attorney at law. Visit his website today, attorneycalvindjohnson@gmail.com.
The Scott Murray Show continues. Join the conversation at 888-787-5543. Now back to Relationship Roundtable with Steve, Calvin, Trey, and Scott.
6:33 on your Sunday night. We're going to be here till 7 o'clock tonight, as we told you throughout the half hour. Co-parenting. How about it? Are you a part of it? Have you been involved with it? It is something that maybe is on the horizon for you. Well, we've got some do's and don'ts when it comes to that. Of course, number one, the kiddos, the children. Take care of your children. 1, 2, 3, 4, however there might be. They are key, and that's what it's all about. Brad Craig is our special guest. As I said, he's a co-parenting counselor and social worker. And is there a story that comes to mind that just blew you away? I mean, you've shared stuff with us that has already blown me away. But is there one thing that you say, I will never forget so-and-so when this happened? Obviously, no names. Keep it personal, or keep the personalities out of it.
Gosh, I don't know. I've had so many cases. So I started specializing
They're all
in this
like
area
that, right?
in 1992. I think so. I was a child who grew up between two homes. So for me, it's a real passion to improve the quality of life for families. And what I think about is families just often don't know the options available to them. They tend to do a search for aggressive attorney first, as opposed to who's the attorney who settles cases, who's the attorney who's going to help us come through this process and still be friends and be able to dance at our daughter's wedding. And so they look for an adversarial avenue first, and they don't know about collaborative law and co-parenting education and mediation and all those resources. When you talk about probably the worst case for me or worst situation, really had nothing to do with the volatility of the family. It was a case where I did the custody evaluation, and I recommended the father to have that primary role. And mom had lots of issues. Years later, the grandparents ended up filing to be the primary caregivers. It's because one of the children was killed with the dad riding on the tractor with him, and there's really nothing he could do about it. But for me, I always looked at the experience of I recommended that father have primary, and it's it's something that the best of parents could have found themselves in a situation like that. But that was pretty tragic for me, and it brings me back to I was a child who grew up between two homes. I want to make the world better for children, and I don't want to do custody evaluations where I'm recommending people. I want to sit down with families and help them. I want a family, if they're thinking about going through a divorce or separation, go to my website, call me, come meet with me. Let's design a shared parenting plan. Let's work with attorneys that are going to help you go through this process very peacefully.
Interesting. Steve, you had a question.
No, I was just thinking about what you could recommend to dads specifically just remind them on how to treat their kids if they're in a bad custody case. I hear judges all the time and do not talk to those kids at all. What do you see with that?
So I would recommend that, and I don't think courts are asking parents not to talk to the children. They're asking them not to talk to the children about the litigation or to say bad things about the other parent.
Right. And let me ask you real specifically, what if kids come to the parent and ask them questions? How do you advise parents to handle those questions?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one I get a lot from parents is, well, what if my child comes up and asks me these questions? And the analogy that I often use is, if your child comes up to you and says, how was I made? Are you going to tell them the truth? If you've got a 3-year-old, you're not going to tell your 3-year-old the truth. You're going to say, well, the stork brought you. You grew up in a cabbage patch. If your 7-year-old comes up to you and says, how was I made? How are you going to answer that? You'll answer it a little different. You tell a 7-year-old that a stork brought them. They're going to be in the backyard with a BB gun. I don't want any brothers or sisters. Your 12-year-old comes up to you and says, how was I made? Now are you going to tell them the truth? And when I'm teaching the co-parenting class, we'll use this analogy. And a lot of the people in the class will say, yeah, well, then we tell them the truth. And I'm saying, no, you won't. You'll talk about sperm, egg fertilization. You're not going to say, well, we were drunk and in the back seat of the car. You're not going to give them adult information. What happens in the courtroom is adult information. That's stuff that's behind closed doors. So if we can get dads and moms to understand that that's behind closed doors kind of conversation, the only thing that the children really need to know is mom and dad tried to work it out. We couldn't. We still love you.
So if they come up and they ask them about the ongoing litigation, like is there a hearing and what's going to happen and what's going to happen to me and all that stuff, what do you advise parents?
I would say that's really an adult conversation. That's really something between your mom and I, and at some point you'll have your own understanding of those things. There was a radio program that had interviewed a girl when she was just a child. And there's a book that a lot of us professionals had recommended for children. It's the Boys and Girls Book About Divorce, written by Gardner. And she had read the book, and she said it wasn't really helpful because I wanted to know more information. I just wanted to know why they were divorcing. I wanted to know what was happening in court. And her parents just kept telling her, this is adult stuff. This radio station went back and interviewed her when she was in her 30s, and now she was a school teacher. And what she talked about is, I'm so glad everybody kept me out of that. At the time, I wanted to know that stuff. But as children, you're curious. You want to know, why can't I see that rated R movie? Or why won't my parents let me watch that show? What she understood later is how inappropriate it would have been for her to be involved in that.
Trey, you've been kind of quiet over there tonight.
I just want to know, can you just give us like the top 2 or 3 or 4 do's and don'ts? I mean, what should you do? What should you not do when it comes to co-parenting?
Well, one is just remember you're always a family and you'll stay a family. That you can stop being lovers, you can stop being husband and wife, but you never stop being that core family for the child. Look at it from your child's point of view instead of your point of view. When you think about a new relationship, yeah, they may like that person, but do you want to take time to get to know that person first before you introduce them to your child?
We have a 6-month rule. I think the 6-month rule is
yeah, 6 to 12 months or so. And if I can get parents to go that long, I'm pretty lucky. But yeah, that's, of actively dating. And I think that's important, is that you want to actively date somebody at least 3 to 6 months. I made a mistake when I first started teaching the Children in the Middle co-parenting class. I was talking about it being 6 months, and I was in Judge Wells' court, as a matter of fact. And I was passing around the Children in the Middle brochures, and a dad was on the stand, and mom's attorney had asked him, so when did you introduce your girlfriend? And right then is when I walked into the courtroom. He goes, I just did what Brad Craig recommended. And
well,
so,
all right.
Yeah, so the mom's attorney said, so what did Brad Craig recommend? That I waited 6 months. Oh, so you waited 6 months? Yes. How many times did you see her in those 6 months? 3 times? Oh, that's not the point. The point is actively dating them for 3 months. So for 3 to 6 months. Actively means that you're exclusively with them and you're really getting to know them before you introduce your children. So looking at it from the child's point of view, remember that you're still a family and focus on understanding that transition, that maybe you're ready for the divorce, but if your co-parent isn't, it's going to take them time to transition through that dust. I think the main don'ts are involving the children in the litigation, using them to gather information about what's happening at the other household. And if you're worried that there is abuse or something going on, that's why we have counselors and therapists. Let the therapist deal with your child, because I've seen cases where, well, I know when I was doing custody evaluations, because a parent was the one probing the child, I don't know whether it's actually happened or whether it was guided by the parents to say
they were
that.
cross-examined. I've had parents come in and they have something, recorded audio, and they say, I got the evidence I need right here to do this, to change this over. And they play it, and they're literally cross-examining their 9-year-old about stuff about, well, isn't dad spending time with prostitutes? Isn't dad, staying out all night drunk? Isn't dad, and the poor 9-year-old
What's a prostitute?
Yeah, that
Well, let me
kind of
tell
thing.
you.
And, and they're just cross-examining these kids, and I'm like, I can't use this. This is worse for you than it is. This hurts you more than it helps you.
Brad, I've got a case where the mom is actually sending the daughter over to steal a hard drive, an external hard drive, just evidence, just stuff from the dad's house. And it's amazing what people will do out there.
That's a great example of those extreme alienation cases where they're using the child literally as the secret agent. It goes beyond just the, what did you guys do this weekend? It's moving into the gather this information. This device, nobody can see it on there, but this device, the cell phone, has become this whole world of friction between parents raising children between two homes. Back in 1998, when I opened up Children in the Middle and started teaching those classes, cell phones, were very rare. Caller ID was a box that was wired to your, what we called a landline. Now everybody is getting their children's cell phones, and it's this huge area of conflict in working with co-parents, because one parent will buy the cell phone for the child, say it's yours, then the child brings it to the other household. That parent says, I think you're too young to have a cell phone, so now that child doesn't want to spend time with that parent. And then we have all these tracking devices. So now a parent will be, is he in bed? Yes, he is. Well, according to my tracking device, you're still at the mall with him.
Let me ask you, what do you recommend as far as parents buying kids cell phones so they can communicate with the kid when they're not, obviously not during their own possession time, and all during the day and that kind of thing? How do you think that affects the child?
So this is where I'm going to use the old school. I'm so old school. I just don't know why 5, 7, 8-year-old children need to have cell phones. I understand having teenage boys that it was nice once they were in school to be able to have a device where I could communicate with them. But at least the school back then was basically you turn your cell phone off when you come to school, then you turn it back on when you leave. I think this world of technology is really created this open door to way too much information. You're having to multitask so many different things with kiddos. And then in the world of co-parenting, it's introduced this whole way of being in the home with your child without really being there in their home. A lot of intrusion. a lot of boundary violations, texting all throughout the day, interfering with the child's time with the other parent. A reasonable amount makes sense. But if you're texting 3 or 4 times during Thanksgiving dinner and you're not getting the message that they're trying to sit down and have a Thanksgiving dinner, it's overly intrusive.
So used to be we'd have designated phone time for the parent not in possession, like 3 times a week between 7 and 8 p.m. or something. But with the advent of these cell phones, I mean, they can talk to this kid or text the kid all day long or at any time during the day. So I don't know about Trey, what you're seeing, what judges are doing, but I'm seeing them kind of go away from that because the kid's got the phone and you don't need these designated times.
I think we're still doing that over in Tarrant County. We just did it last week where it was like between 7 and 7:30 they can talk on the phone with the child. But I got a 12-year-old. He doesn't want to talk on the phone to me. He's with me every other day for more than about 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, and that's really pushing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a difference between one of the things that I think we can do as professionals working with these families is help them mediate plans when it comes to cell phones. That's one of the things that I'll incorporate when I'm doing parenting plan mediation, which is I'm not dealing with property or 401k plans. I just have 2 attorneys saying, we got 2 parents who we think we can work this out, and we don't want them to caucus in separate rooms or anything. We just want them to come meet with somebody to design a shared parenting plan. That's one of the things that I'll often cover. Even if they have a 3-year-old, I'll say, now I know you're not buying them a phone now, but let's come up with a plan now because I don't want to see you back in court later on. Let's come up with a plan of how we're going to address rules for cell phone usage. What are the hours? When's appropriate? What's the maximum amount you're going to communicate during the day?
See, my son's had a cell phone since he was about 8, which is probably bad, I guess. I don't know, but he's always on it. And if I need him, I text him. I mean, it's usually no big deal.
It is a great form to communicate, especially if co-parents are cooperative. If they're supportive of it, on their same page, they respect each other's boundaries.
Well, 6:46 is where we stand right now. We've got to take one final break, guys, but we'll be back with more of Relationship Roundtable right after this. For over 3 decades, Steve Bruneman has been a Texas trial lawyer, battling for his clients' rights, specializing in comprehensive family law services. To this day, he remains one of the most experienced board-certified family law attorneys in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. His unique combination of experience, knowledge, trial skills, and commitment are what continue to set him apart from his peers. He's been named a Texas Super Lawyer 6 consecutive years, and now adds published author to his resume, having just written The Marriage Gamble, a step-by-step guide that teaches the skills needed to become a great spouse. Because as Steve says, great spouses don't divorce. Achieving the results his clients desire and deserve. That's Steve Bruneman, passionate about his work, compassionate with his clients. Visit his website, brunemanlaw.com. That's BRUNEMAN law.com. Serving Dallas, Collin, Denton, Rockwall, Ellis, and Kaufman counties. Hey, did you know that the biggest investment most people will make in their lifetime is the purchase of their home? So it's most important that you find a mortgage company that's experienced and knowledgeable. A lending company like King Financial Group, your Texas mortgage specialist. King Financial Group has been helping families achieve home ownership for close to 25 years. King Financial Group is all about choices, and you have many when it comes to your mortgage loan. You'll be provided with a free approval letter to make an offer on a home should you volunteer your credit documentation. And if you're short of time, it's easy to simply apply online at King Financial. If you're a veteran, teacher, police officer, firefighter, healthcare worker, or a small business owner, check out our Loans for Leaders program at loansforleaders.com for potential savings opportunities. For more information, simply call 972-539-2500. Visit our website today, kingfg.com. King Financial Group, where you're treated like a king. Been in the market for a good attorney lately? If so, make certain that you find someone that is knowledgeable, experienced, and trustworthy, and certainly board certified. Board certification is a mark of excellence and signifies that the certified attorney has met rigorous objective standards. And here in the great state of Texas, only 10% of practicing attorneys have achieved such distinction. One such attorney, Trey Harris. And if you happen to live in Tarrant, Johnson, or Parker counties, then he should be your attorney of choice. The Harris Law Firm is a boutique firm located in Fort Worth, specializing in all aspects of family law, including adoptions, divorces, child support issues, protective orders, and cases involving child protective services. Sound like someone you need to talk to? Then give them a call today, 817-294-1237. Again, that's 817-294-1237, and schedule your consultation today.
Time to get back to the conversation at the Relationship Roundtable. It's the Scott Murray Show with Steve, Calvin, Trey, and Scott.
649 is where we stand. Our special guest tonight, Brad Craig. He's a co-parenting counselor and social worker, and we are talking about co-parenting tonight. We've heard some incredible horror stories, I guess best put, about things that can happen when the emotion gets too much involved with what's going on. But again, you can't say enough. Number one, numero uno, the children, your child, that's what it's all about. Because they are your legacy, and doggone it, let's get it right and leave them with wonderful thoughts about mom and dad. Not that they're a couple of stiffs that can't get along together. Really, that's what it's all about. And we sound like the men's club in here tonight. Brad here, the 1, 2, 3, 5 of us, and we like to always go for diversity, so to speak. But women, men, are we the ones that are the more challenging when it comes to this type of thing, co-parenting, or is it kind of a 50-50 split?
Oh, no, I would definitely say it's a 50-50 split.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I've had some cases where the female was the aggressor or the alienator. I've certainly had cases where men too, or sometimes men just are not as involved with the kiddos as they could be, those are the success stories when you start seeing them more involved.
Right.
But I've had cases where women were the ones who really needed to become more active in their children's life.
So if you were president for a day and you had a chance to stand in your pulpit right now, because the four of us like to think about solutions. We talk about what goes up and what comes down and what's wrong but what is right? What do we really need to know about this kind of thing? And if anybody out there that's listening wants to say, oh my gosh, give me some information. I want to make this right. We've got to get it right for not only me personally and my spouse, but for the kids.
I think the first thing is to know that there are options. There's so many people that I meet with, so many people who come to the co-parenting class, and when we teach part one of the class, the number one complaint we get about our class is, I wish I'd taken this class before I hired attorneys, or I wish I'd taken this class a little bit earlier.
Is there a website or something? I don't mean to interrupt you, but tell us how people out there can get a hold of what you're telling us.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I have two websites. One is childreninthemiddle.com. And that's really more for the local area, although there's lots of handouts and resources and links to other services throughout the United States.
Say that again.
childreninthemiddle.com.
Okay.
I have another website, betweentwohomes.com, and that's where we host our online co-parenting education class. And so parents that in rural areas or parents who are just thinking about getting a divorce or separating, and again, maybe they were never married, but they need to come up with a legal solution for their child, can go take the co-parenting class from home if they want to. I think
What's the
number
cost
one
on
thing,
it?
It's $39.95 for the online class. So
That's
pretty
a
cheap.
bargain.
Pretty cheap. And they get to hear from the local Tarrant County and Dallas County judges. And so it gives them an opportunity to say, they go in with assumptions about what they think the courtroom is really like, and then they get to hear directly from maybe their own judge and go, maybe that's not what I want to say in court.
And do you have because courts always want you to file proof that you took the class. Is that included with that $39.95?
That is, yeah. They get a certificate, assuming that they passed the post-test, and they have to score 80% on the post-test, then they'll get a certificate. If they don't, then they have to take the course all over again. And so for you voluntary folks, I'm sorry to do that to you. But for those folks that are really wanting proof that they attended and participated, it's different in a live class than an online class. So for an online class, then it's really important that we score them just to make sure that they really are learning.
Interesting. Calvin, we haven't heard much from you today. I know you're sitting there listening. You're like I am.
I want to talk about the success stories because I think we talk about the craziness or the people not getting along. What happens when you see parents co-parent properly? Tell me what that's like and the benefits of that.
So that's what I really love about my job. Most of my clients, even when I talked earlier about my high conflict parents, but the truth is a lot of those families meet with me one or two times and they go, wow, we were high conflict parents. We're going to stop doing that. And they work together very cooperatively. And those are my success stories. I love those cases that came in as high conflict and they end up looking in the mirror and going, I'm making some huge mistakes here. I need to change this for my child. And that's the vast majority of even my high conflict families. I love it when parents have not hired attorneys yet, and they come take the class voluntarily, and they go, wow, we didn't know all this. They craft a parenting plan. They aggressively seek attorneys that are going to help them work together instead of aggressive attorneys that are going to keep them in protracted litigation. Those are successful to me. Even some of the cases that have returned, some people think, well, we're going to get this divorce finalized and then we'll be done. Well, enter the world of modifications. They can bring it back to court and start duking it out all over again. Those are some of my favorite cases.
I have people that as soon as they're done with one final order are saying, well, what do I need to do to modify this?
Yep.
I mean, literally, as soon as the ink is dry.
Some of these families, I've worked with families that went through the collaborative law process, and then later on, things went south, and they filed for modification, and then they duke it out for about 6 months, and then I get a chance to meet with them, and they're like, oh, we wish we'd done this sooner. Oh, well, now that we know we could just call you and meet with you anytime, we'll just come meet with you in the future. I think that experience of relitigating allowed them the opportunity to go, we'll never, ever do this again.
My approach on this has always been similar to, the heart doctor that tells people, okay, exercise and eat well. If you do this, I won't have to, perform an operation on you. I always prefer that. Mm-hmm. I like it when people take the sensible approach.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can, teach people to approach this way, even though I make less money on it, even though I make less at the end of the day on it, I'm a lot happier. I'm a lot more fulfilled professionally. People go away happier. But if they have to, I'll always litigate if I need to.
That's right. But psychologically, we feel better afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
There's the difference between going to the bar and having that successful glass of wine or that, I've had such a hard day.
Yeah. So, closing thoughts.
Listen to Brad. Listen to what he has to say, because if you are contemplating a divorce and you go to him before you come to me, and actually I'll recommend that you go to a professional counselor and a CPA before you file for divorce, because that will streamline the issues that we have to deal with in the divorce. If you'll do that, you're going to save tens of thousands of dollars on the divorce itself. And if you'll do that, you'll come out happier.
Good advice from an attorney, I might add. How about it, Calvin?
I just think that when you look at it as a whole, I think both parents need to realize when they're raising that child that people are going to look at both of them. If the child doesn't become successful or has additional issues because they had the infighting going on in the home or between folks that were getting divorces. So I think the parents probably need to realize that their success is tied together, and if they go in it together, I think they'll be better for it.
Mm-hmm. Steve, 20 seconds. What do you got?
Yeah, just keep your kids out of your divorce. I mean, absolutely. Just pretend like you're not getting divorced as far as they're concerned, because that will boomerang on you. Your kids are going to be adults a lot longer than they were children, and they'll resent you for it if you try to turn them against the other parent. I've seen it.
Well, it's the one thing in this world, we think of colleges, 4-year, 2-year, trade schools, whatever. It's the one thing that we don't have a degree in. Nobody gets a degree in parenting. Now, there are books over at Barnes & Noble or wherever you might shop for your books, but it's the one thing, and it's the most important job on the face of this earth for those of us that have kiddos. And yet there's nothing out there that tells us how to do it and do it right. 10 seconds. How you want to wrap us up?
Well, I just want to tell those folks that are thinking of separating or divorcing that there are wonderful tools out there. Please go to my website, childrenmiddle.com, learn about as much as you can about co-parenting. Buy the book. It's the portable version of the co-parenting class, and hire attorneys that are going to help you work through this process rather than create more turmoil in your life.
Brad Craig, you've been great tonight. Come back and see us again.
Thank you. We'll do that.
All right. Thank you much. And thanks to all of you for your time tonight. For Steve, Calvin, and Trey, and Relationship Roundtable, always remember, nurture those relationships passionately and productively, whether professionally, personally, or philanthropically. And as we always remind you, live your life as a go-getter and share your life as a go-giver. Until next Sunday, I'm Scott Murray. Good night, Texas.
The preceding program was furnished by Constellation Communications and is responsible for its content.
Hi, Scott Murray here, with an important question for you. Are your retirement accounts at risk of being devastated by another stock market correction? If you said yes, or for that matter aren't totally sure, then you should contact my friend Kathy DeWitt Dunn. She'll show you how to take advantage of growth in the market without the risk, using strategies you just simply won't find at traditional brokerage houses. Chances are you've seen Kathy as a featured financial expert on television.